All right, welcome back to another episode of the Bigfoot Society podcast. This time I've got the privilege of talking to Wade, who is an experiencer of many interesting things over the years, I guess we could say, and he's going to be sharing about his years of experience from Humboldt County, California, which most listeners should be aware of that area. I'm sure after this interview, you definitely will be aware of it. But welcome to the show. How are you doing today, Wade?
I'm doing well, Jeremiah. Thank you. How are you doing?
Doing great. It's a great afternoon when I get to talk to people about Bigfoot and just kind of chill and do that. I would much rather do that than be in the news. So, but yeah, that's not my deal. Anyways, Wade, is there anything else that the listeners would need to know about yourself before we get going with our chat?
I mean, just kind of on a personal note of just kind of who I am. I'm just a really highly sensitive person. Some of the work I've done in my life is like energy balancing. So just, kind of hands-on like acupressure type stuff. So I think I'm just one of those people that is very sensitive to energy and vibes and like sensing what I sense in my awareness is a huge guide in my life. And it's something that I feel like I've kind of developed. And I say that because that was a big part of all of these experiences.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And I know that you were saying before that Humboldt County, it's not where you're based out of originally, but it's where a lot of your experiences happened. Is that right?
Yeah, that is correct. And it is a highly mystical area. I mean, it's just a beautiful, natural, wild place. And where I lived for 25 years, I've been gone for about 5 years now, but I lived in this coastal town called Trinidad. And if you look on the map, you can see as the crow flies, it's directly west of where Bluff Creek is, Bluff Creek is directly, or very close to directly west of Mount Shasta. And like when you're flying over in a plane, you can kind of see it's all almost like you could draw a straight line between the three areas. And it took me a while of living there before I really put all that together. But I just feel like Mount Shasta is not far as the crow flies. It takes 3 or 4 hours to drive there from the coast, going over the mountains and everything. But as the crow flies, I don't know, maybe it's like 100 miles or something like that. It's not super far.
Yeah, I would really recommend that. A good way for listeners to do this, if you go to bigfootsocietypodcast.com and then the sightings map, just search for Trinidad, California, and you can see how, literally you go directly due east. You've got the Hoopa Reservation, and Willow Creek is right there, man. And then you've got Arcata due south, which there's stuff that happens down there. But maybe we'll start here. So do you remember, was there a first experience when you started living in this area that made you take notice, that made you realize, okay, this is a really intense area and things might get out of the ordinary here?
Yeah, there's a bunch of little experiences that at the time I had no idea what they were. But as time went on and, hindsight's 2020, looking back, I was like, oh my God, I think we had a Sasquatch experience. Or, I mean, I still don't know with some of these things because there wasn't a sighting. But the first one happened around 2001, and my son was just about a year old, maybe a little more. And my partner and I were with him, and our friend and her child. And so we were all down at the beach at this place called Big Lagoon, just a little bit north of Trinidad. And we'd kind of walked around the point and gotten to kind of a little more of a secluded area, and the babies were just playing in the sand. We were just sitting down, like having a little picnic. But in the middle of it, all these tiny little pebbles started falling around us. None of them were hitting us, but tiny, tiny little pebbles, nothing that would really hurt you. But it got my attention, and it wasn't just like one or two. It was a handful of them. And I started getting a feeling, and that's why I mentioned that sensing. It's like, I started getting this feeling like, people mention feeling like they're being watched. It's something similar to that. Maybe it is that. And so these little pebbles were falling around us, and we're all just kind of going, what's going on here? But I got that feeling, and it was kind of like, okay, guys, maybe we should just pack things up, And at this particular beach, there's a pretty big hill right behind it. And in Humboldt, the forest comes right down to the sand. And quite a ways up this hill, but just this first hill by the ocean, near the top of it, there was these two trees these are giant fir trees, probably 30 to 40 feet tall. And it was like something was at the bottom spinning them. They were like shaking back and forth, like pretty wildly. And we looked up at that and we're like, what the heck's going on here? And we just decided to just wrap it up, grab the kids, and move on. I mean, we were the only ones on that whole beach, That was the first experience. And it was like, yeah, I didn't know anything about the rock throwing. I didn't know anything about the tree shaking at that point.
That's really intense. Right off the bat, I do want to check on some. So when you say, I think you said the fir trees were spinning. So I'm trying to picture that. And so were they being like whipping around wildly, like back and forth type deal? Or
yeah, like whipping around wildly, but also kind of like, I don't know if you're at the bottom of it, kind of doing this or, just, okay. It was a wild movement, these giant trees and a whole forest, a still forest, but two trees right next to each other doing this wild stuff. I don't know what that is,
Man, that would make me take notice as well. Were you the only one that had that feeling of being watched, or did anyone else report that they had that same weird feeling?
I don't know if anyone else felt the being watched, but the pebbles and the trees made us all decide that it was time to go.
Probably a good idea. Were you able to actually try to pick up any of the pebbles or see what size they are, or did you were out of there?
We didn't exactly run out of there, but we pretty much just gathered our stuff. And I didn't pick up any pebbles, but they were tiny little pebbles. The whole beach is kind of full of these tiny. The sand there is pretty. The grain is pretty big, and there's all sorts of little pebbles and agates and all that stuff, and even you find that stuff up on the hills as well, further up. So yeah, it was just these tiny, light little pebbles. Even if they hit you, I don't think it would have hurt you.
Sure.
Like smaller than a dime.
So did that experience start to affect you in any way afterwards, or did you start viewing things differently around you in that area?
No, that was the first one, and so that was really just kind of a weird thing that happened that we didn't really have an explanation for, that, we maybe talked about for a day or two and then just kind of forgot about it. Yeah. And it didn't really leave me with the feeling that I've had since then, and through some other experiences where it's like, you really have this kind of burning fire to find out, like, what was that? What's going on,
Absolutely. So from that, I can assume it sounds like there there were other things that happened though that maybe started setting you down a trail of trying to figure out the mystery that's in this Humboldt County. Would you be able to maybe share what happened next in those 25 years?
Yeah. The next thing was we moved to a different house. And once again, it was like the hillside came right down to the back of the house. And it was in a pretty forested area. There's not, the neighbors aren't really close. There's neighbors around, and you can see their lights through the trees and stuff, but no one's really right on top of you. So there's forest to move through in between the houses. And my son was about 3 or 4 years old, and he just came into my room one night, and he was really scared because he said a giant raccoon was looking at him through his window. And that just sent chills down my spine because his window was about 5 feet off the ground. And I was like, I don't know how a raccoon is looking through your window, but that's how he described the face, was like the dark circles around the eyes. And honestly, I didn't go investigate because it was just kind of one of those moments where you're like, okay, let's hang out in my room then,
Absolutely. Oh my goodness. It is so strange how, I don't know if kids are more sensitive when they're younger, but that is a thing, I hear that. I've heard where kids will have encounters, they'll have sightings of weird stuff, and it really does make you wonder. So you weren't able to look in the back to see if there were any like tracks or anything the next day or anything like that?
The next day I did go out there and look. It was a cement walkway right behind the house, and then about just a small little kind of like lip, and then the hillside went up. And so I didn't see any footprints or anything. It wouldn't have been, if it was something big, I guess it could have left a footprint, but it wouldn't have been something that I would have noticed just with all the fir needles and everything on the forest floor right there.
Yeah, so, that makes sense.
And that was just, my son came in, he was scared. I was just in dad mode, just kind of nurturing him. And then kind of through the night, I have this experience a lot. In the moment, I'm kind of like, what's going on here? And then after I have some time to think about it, I'm like, okay, wait a minute. A raccoon staring in his window, that doesn't really make sense. The window's pretty high, so it was kind of like the overnight realization, and then going out there and looking and not really seeing anything, but looking at the window being like, okay, yeah, that was a weird thing that happened.
Yeah, that is straight. I don't think I've ever heard anyone else describe a potential sighting as a giant raccoon. But I mean, at this point, we're not really sure what they look like, to be honest. But were there other weird things that happened around that same house as well? You had moved into it, and then you have this report from your son where he saw something weird looking through the window.
I mean, the only other weird thing that happened there would have been more kind of, I would have related to like the ghost realm, where a couple times, and I had actually had this kind of verified later as well. But a couple times it felt like a little kid, like climbed into the bed, just in the middle of the night. And I found out later that there was, unfortunately, like kind of a massacre up on that hill, up above us, back in history. And and other people that lived at the house had said that they thought there was a child ghost there.
Oh, wow. Oh, that's terrible. That is absolutely terrible. So some kind of historical. So then did you reach out to the previous owners of the house after you had this experience to see if anything weird had happened, or how did you find that out?
Yeah. it was some friends of mine had been living there before me. That's how I actually ended up in the rental, was just kind of through the network and word of mouth. And so, yeah, it wasn't something I actually sought out. It's just something that kind of fell into my lap. The information just arrived later, you know?
Oh, that is even weirder. Yeah. Oh my goodness. It's that's a fascinating synchronicity when you get information like that, but you don't even ask for it. Was that a Native American or First Nations type related incident, or?
I don't know. It could have been,
Okay.
but I really, you know, so many of these experiences I still don't have answers for, and I really do my best to try not to label it or define it if I don't know. You know, I really try to separate like what I do know, and I just kind of have this perspective that it's, you know, so much of life is we get this information, and I just like to put it on the table and give it some time to breathe. And then oftentimes the answers come through synchronicities or something like that. And so, you know, I mean, like right now, these times we're living in, there's so many weird things going on. It's really difficult to discern what's true and what isn't, who's lying, who's telling the truth. And, you know, sometimes you just have a sense of like someone's not telling the truth, but other times you're getting opposing information from two different sides. And so I just like put all the little synchronicities and little tidbits of information I get, the puzzle pieces, kind of as I named my email that I sent to you, like I just put the puzzle pieces on the table and see if they find how they fit together, you know?
Oh, absolutely. I think that's a good way to do it. Do you have any thoughts about why this area there's so many strange things that happen in it over the years?
Well, like I said, it's close proximity to Mount Shasta. You know, there's like these lava tubes and stuff in Mount Shasta, so like underground network. And then there's the 6 rivers in this area, which is also underground network type stuff. So the water's moving underground. I feel like there's all sorts of underground tributaries and stuff feeding these rivers, you know? And overall, it's just a very wild, forested areas. It's, you know, there's been quite a bit of logging, but also it's a lot of that land is just, you know, left alone. You could go walking and hiking out there and just go for days and not ever see another person, and maybe even see a place that people haven't been, you know? There's some really dense forest out there, and just, yeah, it's just a very wild place. I don't know what it is. Everything there is big. The mountains are real steep. The rivers are big. The ocean has really big waves. It's just a very powerful nature place. I mean, anyone interested in nature, outdoor activities, it's like, I recommend go camping in, you know, in northern Humboldt. Go check it out. It's an amazing place.
It is on my list as well to check out. I mean, and I know we've mentioned it a few times, but I mean, just the conversations I've had about the Mount Shasta area are just absolutely really intense. There's a lot of strange things that happen over there, even stuff outside the realm of Bigfoot. And is that an area that you would ever go to, or would you just usually stick out to the coast?
No, I went to Mount Shasta. My wife and I went up there, and just sitting there in Panther Meadows.
Oh, yeah.
We saw, I can't even count how many, like 40, 50, 60 UFOs, lights in the sky. Just things arriving from like beyond what you could see, just coming into the area and then leaving. It was like a galactic airport, it looked like. And, you know, and there's like hundreds, there was a bunch of groups of people up there in that meadow with us. It was a full moon night. we're all up there, and you hear one group be like, "Oh, look over there," and there'd be something coming in. Another group be like, "Oh, look to the west," So it's just nonstop. So I don't know what's going on there, but it's definitely in the portal area or something.
That is absolutely incredible, and I mean, just to have that many people around you too experiencing that has got to be a really cool thing to be able to look back at. So this is a full moon, but you're seeing. How long ago was this too?
Let's see. This would have been 2019.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Cool. So it's not like it's well before you have all these reports of the weird drones and stuff around. This is before that time.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
But it's interesting, like if you go to Mount Shasta, it's like all this stuff is taken for granted. Everyone there knows about it. It's no big deal. But in most cases, anytime I would share this, you just get the common skeptical kind of refusal that it's true from people, It just seems so far-fetched. So, yeah, it's nice to be someplace where you can share the information to people that are open to it.
I agree. That is, I think it's important for information like this to be shared, as it is helpful to the right people that listen to it. And as you were saying before, you put the right people put the right puzzle pieces together to figure stuff out. But have you, thinking over the 25 years, can you think of any other times that you may have had an interaction with something that could come close to a Bigfoot, or something that at least made you think that they could be related?
Yeah. I ended up buying a piece of property that I wanted to homestead that was actually shared a border with the Hoopa Reservation right near the top of the mountain. And I don't know if you've read David Paulides' book, The Hoopa Project.
Sure.
He talks about what he calls like the Bigfoot corridor. And it's like a corridor of land where his theory is they could get across the rivers easily because it's not high cliffs right there. It's more gentle slopes, and it's an area that would connect kind of eastern Humboldt County to the coast. And all of this is in a direct line to, like I said, Trinidad from Bluff Creek. And Hoopa Valley is right in the middle of that. And my property was just up the hill from there. And so I spent a lot of time up there. I spent a lot of time up there by myself, and but had friends and other people up there as well. But one of the times I was walking down to the creek, I spent a lot of time just trying to commune with that area, like walking barefoot and stuff. So you're kind of, as your feet are getting acclimated to walking barefoot, you're kind of walking slow, but it makes you real quiet. And so I would make my way down to the creek, and this one time I was going down there and just looking across the creek, I just saw something that I think was a juvenile Sasquatch, but I saw it for 2 seconds at the most. I cannot say for sure that that's what it was, but it looked like, like if you're sitting on a swing and you're seeing somebody from the back sitting on a swing, you can see kind of that they're sitting on it, and you can see the shape of their back and their head and everything. That's basically what I saw, sitting on a branch, on a really low branch. And then basically as soon as I saw it, it just slipped off and just kind of disappeared into the brush. So, but it was as if you were sitting on a branch and you just kind of pushed off, and it wasn't like The color of the fur was kind of that reddish color. So that's also what kind of triggered the thought that that may have been that versus like a black bear. And it wasn't climbing over the branch like the way a bear would climb over, where you'd see like the back legs last. It was like something had already swung its legs over and was just sitting there, and then it just slipped off. But, you know, these experiences are tough to say, like, this is for sure what I saw, because it's gone so fast. And then you're left with a feeling of, what did I just see? Did I see that? What was that? You know?
You're left with, and I'm speaking from experience, you're left with yourself and your brain trying to talk yourself out of it and trying to figure out what's the most logical explanation. That's what happens to me, man. It's just, how big was the branch that it was sitting on?
It was a pretty thick branch, but it was fairly low. Like, like maybe 4 feet off the ground or something. So,
okay.
I don't know. It was on a real steep part of the hill. So I didn't end up walking up there. And it was real thick brush, like I said. So, but this property, I could go down the creek and I can go across the creek, and I could go up the hill and do this big loop around the whole, basically around the property line. But I never felt like I could go down the creek, and I never felt like I could go down the creek and across the border on the reservation. Like that, just anytime I tried to go down, I just got this really strong feeling of like, you don't belong here. Don't come down here. Go back.
Wow.
And, you know, I just always respect property lines anyways. So I just kind of summed it up as like, yeah, that's not the property that I'm working on here, you know? But maybe there was something that was down there. It was kind of the sense that I got over time.
That is wild stuff. So with, maybe for people, listeners that aren't familiar with David Plaidy's book, how far away is your closest neighbor? How remote out in the woods is this property that you're on? Oh,
it's remote. Like, in that area, there are a couple neighbors, but it's divided into like 40-acre parcels out there. So, and there was like 3 or 4 neighbors kind of in the vicinity on the top and different sides of that hill. But then after that, there's Bald Hills Road. And just along the road, there's properties on kind of both sides that are varying acreages. None of them are smaller than 40. 40 would probably be the smallest. But there's not a lot of properties up there. And then besides, you know, a parcel that's right next to the road on both sides is just wide open forest.
Okay, I definitely have a view of what's going on here. Now I'm looking up Bald Hills Road. That road goes quite a while. That goes quite a ways out there, man, from Oric.
Yeah, and it goes through Redwood National Park.
Yep.
So also it's a national park there. Ding, 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 national parks, you know?
Why are they there?
So just, you know, another piece of the puzzle, so to speak.
Yep. Exactly. You got it, man. Oh, this is wild stuff.
And then this is just hearsay rumor, but I sold the property, and the person that I sold it to had a kid that tried to spend the winter up there, and we get like 2 or 3 feet of snow up there during the winter. And my property is actually on a little road off Bald Hills Road, and that little road is not plowed. So basically, once the snow comes in, you know, definitely by like January till about March or April, there's no snowplow going down that road. So you could park at the top of Bald Hills and hike to the property. It's just about a mile down. But this kid tried to spend the whole winter out there. And this is, like I said, just hearsay. But he said he was totally harassed by a Bigfoot. And it really freaked him out. So
Wow.
I can only imagine being up there and kind of being stuck up there, snowed in, and apparently this thing kept looking in the window at night at him, and and he's up there by himself. It was harassing him, So, the other thing, it appears to me that, I don't know if there's different types or if it's based on kind of your intention and vibe. But some people have very positive experiences, like healing experiences. And then other people get harassed and really, freaked out. So I don't know what's up with that, but that's just also, part of this whole kind of evolution that I've come to learn is it does seem like some people really rub them wrong, or maybe there are some negative ones out there,
No, I agree with you 100%. I would say there's some people in the field, or let's say the Bigfoot community, that are in this for the wrong reasons, and they got to be careful out there. 100%. When you had that sighting where it was on the branch for a few seconds, how did you react to that? What kind of mental state, or did you react? Some people react physically when they see something, or is it something as jarring as that? What did it put you into?
Like I said, a lot of times I have this experience of I'm kind of more of a abstract being where it's like in the moment, I'm like, what is going on here? I don't often react in the moment. So in that moment, it was just kind of like maybe a little bit stunned. And then as I recount it is when it kind of goes like, whoa, that was weird. What the heck was that, So in that particular moment, it wasn't scary at all. I just didn't really understand what I was looking at.
Okay.
But I did have some other experiences that did scare me.
Oh, okay. Sure.
So, and those are really, all this stuff has been kind of the little stuff. Let me get into the bigger stuff.
By all means, go right ahead, Wade. You got it.
Okay. So, just in this timeline that, kind of going from early 2000s through when I moved out of there in 2021, this was sometime around 2011. And I had started getting into like studying this body work type stuff, Rolfing and this acupressure. And I was just really felt very attracted to it. I'd had a couple sessions. I've had a couple shoulder surgeries, and I had received some bodywork sessions that were just so much more healing and really profound. More healing than kind of the traditional Western physical therapy methods and stuff that I had been experiencing. And when I received those sessions, I was like, I got to learn how to do this stuff. Like I want to be able to bring this to people and help them the way it helped me. And so part of that was, I met a man that was really pretty talented at this, and I started kind of spent a period of time kind of studying and learning from him. And he was just, we'll just call him an interesting cat, he was pretty out there, and somebody that was really, I don't know, like in hindsight, I kind of feel like maybe he was dabbling in things that I'm not interested in, like maybe, going a little too far down the esoteric path with that stuff. But at the time we were friends, and I was spending kind of an intensive period of time with him learning. And I kept asking him, do you want to come up to the property and check it out? I think you'd really love it up there. It's beautiful. It's nature, it's quiet. You get out of town, and he was like, I don't want to go up there. If I go up there, I'm going to see a Bigfoot. And the few times I asked him that, he was like, I don't want to do that. And so I just dropped it. I said, okay. I didn't really understand. But one night, him and I had dinner together, and he was back at my house, and we drank a couple of glasses of wine, and we were just sitting there chatting, and it was getting late. It was like 10 o'clock or so. And I was fading out. I was like, hey, I'm going to go to bed. And he's like, do you mind if I just sleep on the couch for an hour, and kind of, sober up before I drive home? I said, no problem. At the time I lived in a 24 by 40 foot mobile home. And so anyways, he's on the couch, and every night I always slept with my door open. But this night, when I went to bed, I was like, I need to close my door. And I don't know if it was just because, I had company over or whatever, but I kind of got a feeling like you should really close your door tonight. It's like, okay, so I trust these things when they happen. So I close my door. I fall asleep. Next thing I know, it's like 5 a.m, and I hear the front door open to the house. And, it's a mobile home, so you can hear everything real clearly. And something so big walks into the house that it's shaking the entire trailer with each step. Like, boom, boom, boom. It walks in through the living room, comes down the hall, walks to where my door is, and like I'm waking up out of a dead sleep. I'm like trying to lean up, and I feel like this energetic hand like just push me down. Like not violently and not with any sort of negative feeling, but a tremendous pressure holding me down, and I'm just like laying in bed. And the thing is there for like 20 seconds, 30 seconds maybe, and then it walks back out the way it came in. I hear the door close. I hear it walk down the deck, and hear it jump off the deck through the brush. I have like a hedge next to the house. And that was the last I heard of it. And now I can get up, and I sit up, and I'm just instantly like exhausted. And I just lay right back down, fall asleep. Next thing I know, it's 10 a.m. I slept for 5 more hours. Just like a blink of an eye. I get up, I walk out. I can't see anything abnormal or anything weird. Once again, just like a strange experience that I can't really explain. I call up my friend, and I was like, hey, did you leave the house at 5 a.m? And he's like, no, man, I did exactly what I said. I left the house about an hour after you went to bed. You were sawing logs. And I'm like, okay, well, something big came in the house. And Jeremiah, for like 5 or 7 years, I didn't know what happened with that. I had no idea what that was. But for the next 2 weeks, every single night outside my window, I saw something in the hedge. It was probably like a 10-foot tall hedge. And what I saw was like something cloaked. And it would be like a still night and just a few leaves about 8 feet up in this hedge would be like doing this, just like dancing, like really fast, just a couple leaves. And the rest of the hedge would be totally still and silent. And it was like, I could almost see the outline of something, but it was more that I could, like I said, like I could sense it. And I would say something like, I see you, like, you know, and like I said, every night for 2 weeks, that thing was out there, and then it just went away. So 5, 6, 7 years later, some long time later, I've had this question this whole time, like, what came into my house? I even went to like a couple psychics, like, you know, like this question that burned so deep that I was like, does anybody have answers, you know? And all they could say is like, yeah, like something really big came in your house. But a couple of them both said, but it wasn't looking for you. It was looking for your friend.
Oh, no.
And later, my friend, that guy, ran into another mutual friend, and he goes, hey, how's Wade doing? I think a Bigfoot came in his house looking for me. Like, what the heck?
No wonder. Oh, my goodness. Yeah. No wonder he was like, I'm not going up there.
And I don't know what he'd done to piss him off, but...
Dude, that's one of the wildest things I've ever heard. Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's the strangest thing that's ever happened to me, I think. Just the presence was big. And it was frightening because the presence was so big. I personally didn't feel threatened, but I did feel frightened.
Right. It also sounds like the next morning you're not seeing any physical evidence that something was there. And that just makes it even more weird, you know?
Yeah.
Man. Was this after you had lived up by the reservation?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
This was kind of at the end of the time when I had that property, actually.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So it just, the hedge, you seen that the cloaked individual in the hedge, that just all of a sudden stopped?
Yeah. It was there, like I said, every night. And then one night it just wasn't there anymore, and I never saw it again. But you can bet I kept looking, you know?
I am going to ask this just because someone's like, ask it. I know one listener is like, ask this. Okay. So when you were having the sightings of the cloaked individual in the hedge by your house, did this happen on, so I would assume if you had like a few glasses of wine the one night, mm-hmm. then maybe that would be, did this happen on nights when you would have no wine and also nights that you would drink wine as well?
Yeah.
Okay. Man, that's awesome. Okay. Yeah, very cool.
That was the, I'm not a everyday.
Okay, cool.
Sort of drinker, cool. You know, but, but yeah, I understand.
Yeah. That's fantastic.
That's the kind of question people always want to ask when you have these sort of experiences. Although I'll say, you know, it's one thing if you're drinking like a couple bottles of wine.
Right.
But personally, I feel like if you have a glass or two it can really kind of open up your perceptions, and you can see energies sometimes, if you're somebody that I think is prone to that sort of thing. It kind of opens you up, I think you have to be careful with that stuff. But yeah, I'm just, through my own experience, I'm just not the kind of person that is going to question somebody over that sort of thing, like,
Sure.
what were you smoking? Absolutely. What were you drinking?
Right.
I mean, it's fine that they want to ask, but I just don't think that it has that sort of a influence, really.
Absolutely.
That's going to make you hallucinate,
Yeah, exactly. So this, man, living through something like that, where you have that intense encounter and then a solid day after day, you have you're seeing that in the hedge. I mean, that must have affected you in a pretty strong way afterwards.
Yeah, the biggest thing like I said, was just this burning question of what happened. What was that? And like I said, to the point of even seeking, answers from kind of more esoteric places by going to like energy readers and psychics. And, I went to 2 different people to kind of see what they had to say. And they verified basically the same thing, but also couldn't really give me an answer. And just the fact that I was asking in that realm, it was just something I was going to take with a grain of salt,
Sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I would hopefully, that's the scariest thing that you've ever experienced. I would hope that it doesn't get other than that.
No, I mean, I think that was probably number 1. But I have a couple other experiences. One other that was also, and maybe because of this experience, the next one was also frightening. And I'll share that with you. Where I lived was pretty close to a state park, Patrick's Point State Park. It's now called Sumag. I lived about a half mile from there. And so I spent a lot of time walking through that park. And, just like my daily walk, just go walk for an hour and a half. And there's so many trails in that park. You can just walk all over the place. You can spend the whole day walking in there. It's another place I totally recommend checking out if people want to camp or something. You have to put reservations in advance. But all these experiences happen during the winter. During the summer, the park gets really packed and really full. But during the winter, it totally empties out, and they even close down sections of it as far as the camping is concerned. But you can still walk through all the trails that go through the whole park. And so just being close to my house, I'd walk there every day. And I'd often walk down in the afternoon and watch the sunset and then walk back through the park and come home. But I always kind of had a feeling of like, get out of the park before dark. And it's the forest. And I think that can feel a little bit unnerving. But I got kind of tired of feeling that way about it getting dark. And so I decided, like, I'm going to try to conquer this fear, And so, I mean, I would go in there at night and stuff sometimes, like with a flashlight or whatever. But this particular night, I had watched the sunset and I was coming back and I kind of had that fear coming up. And I'm like, I'm so tired of this. This is like my home area. I don't want to feel, frightened, in the forest. I want to feel comfortable here. Let me see if I can get comfortable. And so rather than walking out back to the street, I stopped really just like 100 yards shy of the road. But it's so densely forested, it's like I knew that I was only 100 yards from the road, but it feels like you're still in the forest, And there's this real soft, mossy ground cover in some areas there. And so I just kind of sat down on that ground cover and just kind of went into a little bit of like a meditative state, just breathing and close my eyes. And I'm just listening and just kind of taking in everything and just seeing if I can let go of the fear, and, like there's just kind of, saying to myself, like, there's nothing to fear, and it gets dark. I'm still sitting there. And then I'm kind of in a deeper state now of just inner world, and I hear this sound. And the first time I hear it, it doesn't register, but it's like mumbling followed by like a gruff sound. And I hear it again about 30 seconds later, and it's a little closer. And it's still not really registering because I'm in kind of this deeper state, just focused. And then the third time I hear it, all of a sudden it like registers. I'm like, wait a minute, what am I hearing? And I'm going to try to make the sound for you guys. And it is so weird. It's like mumbling chatter followed by this kind of like gruff, almost bark, like and then like getting more aggressive. So I heard it 5 or 6 times. By the 5th or 6th time, I'm like, all the hairs on my neck are standing up. Each time it's gotten consecutively closer to me. It's in the forest, coming my way. And it's coming from kind of the eastern direction towards the ocean. And I know these trails like the back of my hand. But in this moment, like, I got up and I'm trying to like follow the trail to get back to the road. And it's almost like that fear just came over me. And that's why I said, like, maybe it was triggered from that previous experience, but that kind of bark at the end of the mumbling, it sounded like an angry drunk person, but they weren't speaking English,
My goodness.
And so I'm trying to get following the trail. I know like the back of my hand, but I keep making wrong turns and hitting these like dead ends that are so close to the road, but it's just like such thick forest right there. You just get so scratched up if you're trying to get through the brush right there. So I got to backtrack like 10 feet and then go down to the next one. I'm like, oh, this is the fork, and oh no, another dead end. Then finally I get back to the road, and I just like fast walked home in the middle of the road. Like I didn't want to be too close to the forested edges of the road anywhere on the way home. And that was it. I didn't hear anything else. It didn't follow me. But that one also was pretty unnerving.
That is absolutely horrifying, because I'm looking at the map and it's like when you're in Sumeg, you're on the west side of 101. Mm-hmm. But like from the way you're saying it, it is so thick in there, it's easy to get lost still.
Yeah, I mean, it's in the daylight, it's no problem. At night, There's all these little animal trails. There's like kind of the walking trails. They're not like, graveled, cleared out trails. They're just like these trails that people have walked on so much they've become walking trails. There are some like wheelchair friendly trails throughout the park that you can take on these kind of long walks and stuff. But this was kind of in an area connecting the campground, not even connecting, like the last campground ends and you have to walk through the forest, and it's just these little animal trails kind of all throughout that get you back to the road. Yeah.
how close would you estimate that the sound was? You mentioned seemed to be getting closer.
I don't know exactly how close it got. I mean, just an estimate, I would say 50 to 100 yards, but it's hard to tell in the forest.
Yeah.
It got too close for comfort. And like I said, the first 2 times I heard it, it didn't register. And then the third time when it did register, it already had gotten noticeably closer. And then the fourth time being even closer. But like the third time when it registered, it wasn't just like a hello. It was like a wake up, like pay attention moment. Like I just went into high alert all of a sudden and kind of contemplated, do I just sit here? And then I was like, get out of here. You know?
I don't blame you, dude. I'd be the same way, man. I've talked to people, and like that sort of thing is the thing that they wouldn't be going into the woods again. Was that similar to you, or how was the fallout from that experience?
I mean, I love that place and I love being out there. And so it didn't stop me from going in the woods. I didn't hang out at night out there, and just the irony of trying to overcome my fear of the dark. That was just kind of the affirmation of like, well, maybe there really is something to be afraid of in the dark out here. So just kind of a, affirmation of my feelings that I'd had the whole time. Like, don't try to change those, I had another experience in that park, where I heard like the owl hooting, and that was a daytime experience around 3 or 4 in the afternoon. Kind of my normal time when I'd like to go down there and walk through the park. And these things, like I said, they're all happening in the winter, like January, February. The park is pretty much empty. Like you can walk through that park and you might see another person, another local taking a walk, but there's hardly anyone camping. There's sections of the park that are closed for camping, but you can still walk through. So that's where you kind of end up in these areas that are almost kind of protected from the public during the winter time, But yeah, same thing. Walking in that same area, and I heard an owl hoot, and I was like, cool, owl. But then I'm like, wait, but it's like 3 in the afternoon or 4 in the afternoon. And then a little bit, just a few moments later, I heard another owl coming from a different direction. And then I heard the other owl, and I heard the second one again. But I started to realize like those sound like really big owls. Like the lung capacity sounds too big for an owl.
Right.
And it was like they were triangulating. They were like getting closer and kind of triangulating in on me. And they ended up about 50 yards away, which now I'm coming to find out is, I think, pretty common distance that they keep. So it's like you can't see through the trees. The forest is like a little too dense to be able to see them. But by the 4th or 5th owl call, it's like their voices were cracking. And it was ending up with like kind of a deep, like, hoo, hoo, hoo. You're like, okay.
Yeah. No, I know exactly what you're talking about, man. Yeah.
And at first it really was, sounded like a pretty good imitation of alcohol, like had me fooled at first. And then it ended up being something else. And same thing. It's like you feel it in your chest. There's a presence there that's all I can describe it as is it feels really big. And I even wonder if possibly I might have had the opportunity to see or meet these beings if I was open to it, but I don't think I've been ready. Like and this happened up on the property too, like sticks cracking, branches breaking, and something coming closer and getting the same feeling, like a really big, large presence, that something is there. And it's a very distinct feeling. But then me being like, I don't know if I'm ready for this or if I'm fully open to this. And so I wonder if that's why I haven't seen anything yet, you know?
I think that's a really aware thought to have. And I totally get it. Do you think you'll ever be at the point where you'll feel ready for that to happen?
I think I could be. I'm not really opposed to it. And now that I don't live there, I kind of miss having those sort of experiences a little bit. But I'm not entirely sure what we're dealing with. So it would have to really kind of present itself to me. And then I think I would respond in the moment. But, you know, now with all these experiences, maybe I'd be a little more willing to, you know, stand my ground and stay. But the feeling when these things are around is so big, it is really overwhelming. I really have to admit, it's quite overwhelming.
I would agree with you on that. It's one of the weirdest things you can experience. And also, I think the other weird thing that I always remember is how the woods always get really, really quiet. That always is, it's weird. It messes with you, but it's also like a reminder that, hey, something cool could happen pretty quickly. So pay attention. Yeah. It's weird how that works. Wade, thank you so much for chatting with me today. I want to make sure that you were able to, you know, share the different things that you'd come to the show to share today, as we have a few minutes left in our time today.
Yeah, as far as the Sasquatch realm is concerned, I have 2 bluff charges that happen within 3 days of each other. And I would like to just probably maybe close out with those.
Yes, absolutely. Feel free to do so.
So a good friend of mine and I were working for a third friend, and we're working at the end of Johnson Road, which is off Bald Hills. And it is it's off the Hoopa Reservation. It's on the Yurok Reservation, just a little bit further downriver from there. And Johnson Road is just this one-way road that dead ends, goes way out there. And this friend had like 10 acres out there that was just really remote. And my buddy and I were hired to pull the roof off of a cabin. He was going to re-roof it. And so he gave us the keys to the gate and sent us out there. And we were going to spend a couple days out there doing it. It was a couple days worth of work. So anyways, we spent the whole day up on the roof of this cabin, taking off this metal sheeting. And at the end of the day, we had a barbecue. And we barbecued up like a bunch of sausages on the grill. And we had just finished eating, and something just came over the ridge and came plowing through the forest. It sounded like a freight train, just bipedal, just sounded like it ran down the hill and stopped, like not very far from us, like 30, 40 feet away. but there was dense trees right there, and we couldn't see past the trees and the brush. And both of us were standing looking up at, I don't know why, but we were both looking up, like quite a ways up, like at like if something was 10 or 12 feet tall, we were looking up there like that. I don't know why we were looking like that, but it came so fast and so powerfully through the forest. That one also set me off, and I was like, I was with my friend Scotty, and I turned and like said, Scotty, let's go. Like my car was like 10 feet away. I'm like backing up. I'm like, Scotty, let's go. He's just standing there, just frozen, just staring at this thing. And I'm like, I get to my car door. I'm opening my door. I'm like, Scotty, come on, And the presence once again was just really big, and never saw anything. And then it just kind of ended. And he said he heard it going up the hill after about 30 seconds. I didn't hear that, but it definitely, we were both like, what the heck just happened? Yeah. And so we ended up leaving because of that. And then the next day we were back up there working again. We decided not to spend the night. And when we went back up and looked, we walked over to where those trees were and looked, and there was actually an old logging road that had been cut into the hill right there. And so behind the trees was actually about a 5-foot drop down to where that old logging road was. And whatever it was came right up to that ledge right there. And like I said, I don't know what that was, but it was big. And the fact that we were both kind of looking up just always sat with me weird. So that was the end of that experience, but that is right up from the Klamath River near the Hoopa Reservation. It's all, that area is just a hot spot. I mean, it's as the crow flies, it's only a couple miles from Bluff Creek. It's just right over the next hill right there.
And
yeah,
sorry, I want to jump in. So you are absolutely right. It is crazy if you like are following along on a map, and then the map that I have set up. I mean, yeah, across the Klamath River, like that's where Bluff Creek is, and the film site, and Onion Mountain, and Blue Creek, like all this stuff that you've heard in history if you're into Bigfoot. But on the other side of the Klamath is just as crazy that Wade is sharing today. This is really incredible stuff, man.
Super strange.
Yeah.
And then 3 days later, Scotty and I are walking through Patrick's Point. I take him, we're neighbors down on the coast there, and childhood friends, grew up together. And I take him for a walk with me through Patrick's Point, and we get bluff charged again in Patrick's Point. And just the same thing, like something charging at us, just bipedal, tromping through the brush, and then coming up and stopping right at this like wall of brush so that we can't see it. But same thing, just had us both going, okay, let's turn around and get out of here. And
man,
this time though, it was like it came right at us, and our reaction was to turn around and walk the opposite way. And we walked 10 feet into the brush, and was like, uh-oh, this isn't going to work. Same thing. It's like so dense. So then we had to turn back, get back on the trail. And we had to actually walk past where this thing was to get, to follow the trail out of the forest back to the road. And same thing, like didn't see anything, but just the irony or the coincidence or synchronicity of 2 bluff charges within 3 days with this one friend. And so that's it. that's a wrap on on all the
My goodness.
unknown experiences.
Unknown and just, man, you're right. Some weird stuff in Humboldt, and guys, like some of these places that Wade's been talking about is way out in the bush. And, you know, you got to be careful around this area. I've talked to people off record where they're getting lost out there. They're not prepared. You always be careful, guys. But Wade, thank you so much for coming on the show. It's crazy to hear of places from over by Hoopa Reservation and then even west of 101 by Sumeg State Park, and just really interesting stuff. Thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing what you've been through, and definitely keep us in mind if you ever experience anything else in the future. We'd love to hear from you again, but thank you for hanging out with us today.
All right. Thank you, Jeremiah. Appreciate you and appreciate your audience. And yeah, you guys, it's a mysterious place, this world we live in, and seems to be more and more things seem to be happening and more information being shared. And I think that's why I'm sharing, is just to add, you know, my experiences to the collective knowledge. And yeah, I also would encourage people to share. You never know what little piece of information you might have that, you know, helps somebody or just adds to our collective knowledge. So thank you. Thank you, Jeremiah.